of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. To those making submissions as part of a public meeting, please ensure you sign in using the sheet available at the accessible lectern to preserve rights available to you under the Planning Act or any other applicable legislation. We'll now call this meeting to order. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. I want to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United States Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Please use your mic button as I can't see you on the screen. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to adoption of the minutes. I'm going to just go by ward, local and regional by ward for mover and seconder. If anybody has any objection, please press your speaker button and let me know and I'll put somebody else on here. So starting by Ward 1, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and seconded by Regional Councillor Crawford that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on September 16, 2024 be adopted. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none in the speakers list, please open the vote. And that carries. Bear with me, I'm cycling through several screens. Madam Clerk, was there any questions submitted on items on today's agenda?
No questions submitted, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member of the public here today have any questions arising on today's agenda?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to delegations, presentations, and public meetings. We have 3, starting with 5.1, public meeting for official plan amendment application OPA 24-A11 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z15/24 for 154 Roslyn Road East. I will remind I will remind everyone that we are only dealing today with the official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments. We are not dealing with any site plan issues, which are things to do with studies, with actual building designs, with those types of things. So just a gentle reminder. Madam Clerk, as this is a public meeting, do we go directly to opening up for public comments?
Yeah, unless there's a presentation, but I would open up for public comment.
Okay, I'll just, as these are mayor's directives, I will just open quickly with a brief outline as there's no staff report. These have come forward from the developer who is the applicant with concept plans requesting official plan and zoning bylaw amendments on 3 properties. It's the same developer for all 3 properties. The regional official plan was recently approved, and as a result, our town staff have to go through an official plan review and zoning bylaw update to update all of our plans to conform with the new draft, not draft anymore, recently approved regional official plan. These mayor's directives are an effort to accelerate this process instead of taking upwards to 8 months to a year to go through the standard process. They will still pay the application fees, but we can deal with these through mayor's directives and accelerate them with the expectation of getting site plans submitted and shovels in the ground on a more quicker basis. So with that, I will open it up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to speak to the first matter on the agenda, which is 154 Roslyn?
Yeah. Yeah. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak to this item, please advance and sign into the sheet in the front here, and then the mayor will call us forward to speak. Okay, just come up to the front here. And Mr. Mayor, we do have a couple members of the public to speak today. If you want to just come over to this other podium here with the microphone on.
Thank you. Actually, Madam Clerk, when I turn my mic off so I can see the screen, but when you turn yours off, I can't. So I'll need to rely on you to tell me. I see somebody at the lectern. Please go ahead, sign in. You'll have 5 minutes whenever you're ready to get started.
I did sign in. My name is Therese Biggs. I reside at 154 Roslyn. Oh, sorry. I reside at 158 Roslyn. And I'd just like to ask questions as to how is this going to impact my home? With the zoning being changed, will this change my zoning as well? Or do I have to apply to have this changed?
Please go ahead, ma'am, and ask all your questions, and then we'll address them all at the end when you're completed your delegation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a second question. My name is Dwayne Sam. I'm just a friend of Therese. She says she lives at 158 Roslyn, and this proposal is changing the zoning from prestige employment to high-density residential. So I just want to know whether or not there's any, given the fact that her properties literally within that block, why she was not consulted in regards to this hearing.
Okay, is that the end of your delegation?
That's it for now, yes.
Okay, I'll attempt to answer, and then I'll turn it over to staff to fill in any blanks I may leave. So we just completed about a year and a half ago a 5, almost 6-year municipal comprehensive review at the region of Durham. They looked at all the lands across the region, and there were several applications for what we call conversions. What the final outcome from the municipal comprehensive review was, in your case, was to rezone all of the lands north of Roslyn, east of Harwood, west of Salem, up to the CP rail line, all the way up to Taunton Road. Those lands are all now, as part of the draft, well, not the draft official plan, the new regional approved official plan, are zoned for residential. So in this case, these lands now are residential, and your lands, your 158, would also be residential. Should you wish to rezone it for another purpose, you can certainly apply and go through this same process. I'll ask Ms. Romanowski if you have anything to add to this, please.
Through the mayor to the mayor, nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. I hope I answered your questions. You are absolutely at your discretion to go ahead and go through the same process if you wish to do anything different on your land. Does any other member of the public wish to come forward and make delegation on this matter?
Good afternoon.
Thanks,
My
sir.
name is David Park. I'm the principal and CEO of Pickering Christian School, which is at 162 Roslyn Road. And my questions are more so just from a standpoint of understanding where things go from here. I know you mentioned that while development questions, building design, so on and so forth, are not up for discussion during this conversation, we want to make sure that we're in on the front end to make sure that, and understanding that we still have concerns in regards to the process and how this has gone. Mostly it has to do with the impact, obviously, to the school. We have 295 students from JK to grade 8 that are, represent 176 different families here in the Ajax area. And our concern is just about the impact this change is going to make. Understanding that there is a need for housing in the area for sure, but the impact in and around the surrounding area is of major concern for us. Issues that we brought to light have to do with traffic and the congestion that's already in that area. And while the region has deemed that this is now going to, all this residential aspect is going to happen, what's going to happen with the traffic side of things and the expansion of Roslyn Road, which seems to continue to be delayed, causing major issues with regards to traffic studies and accidents and so on and so forth. It's a mess down there, and our concerns, we just want to make sure that those are noted. As well, just the amendments in regards to some of the development side of things. We're talking about a very substantially large building that exceeds all of the details associated with maximums for number of units, the maximum size of the building, from going from 15 floors to 25 floors. And then just as well, it's a massive increase in total units. You're looking at over 690 units. It's going to be well over 2,000 people. So that's a major concern for us. As well, just the indication of, while this is residential, our concern is that will it just be strictly residential? A lot of these buildings that have the pedestal systems in the bottom of so many floors tend to also then include retail in the bottom of them as an additional extension. And our concern is that while this is residential, is there additional retail or anything else that's going to be tied into this eventual development? There's lots of other things that are there, but as you said, they are partly more about the design of the building. Shadows over onto our property, which basically puts the property 75% in shadow after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, is a pretty substantial issue. And so, this is our opportunity to try to voice our concerns so that we're in line for queue in case there's any other considerations or issues that come up. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. I'll attempt to answer your questions, and I'll open up to council if they have any others. Sir, as you know, obviously you were there, you, myself, Councillor Henry, all had a meeting a couple of weeks ago to discuss the application in my office. We discussed the traffic, we discussed your future plans for your school and the development next to it. We discussed the queuing that happens from people that have kids at your school and the impact of that on Roslyn Road. We discussed some potential alternatives to that, and you were going to go back with your engineers and get back to me with a proposal for a rear type laneway off Spitty Road. And I committed to you at that meeting that we were going to do everything that I could to facilitate that. And I even discussed with the applicant in this process, who I could just see to your left in the video when you're making your delegation, but also the developer on the other side, Sun City, about trying to facilitate this for you to help with access to your property. And the other thing we discussed was the Roslyn Road eventual widening, which is scheduled for design in 2025, I believe, and construction in 2027. And the widening of Roslyn to 4 lanes would ultimately address a lot of these traffic concerns, both for your side as well as the south side, the Belmont property, the Longos Plaza there, and the issues that they have as well, and the potential realignment of the traffic light to Spitty Road. So I was a bit surprised to get your letter this morning, because I thought we had addressed a lot of these things. I guess I would like to continue the conversation with you, because I believe we've already dealt with the traffic ones, being Roslyn, and I was absolutely willing to bring that forward in the budget if it was needed, but it's not necessary. Roslyn Road will be widened before any occupancy of this building occurs. I can't speak to your questions on design and that, because as I said before, we're only talking about zoning and official plan amendments here and zoning bylaw. I can say that shadow studies, traffic studies, all those things will be addressed through the site plan process. Assuming this passes today and the site plan is submitted, all those studies, all that work, and all that public consultation will happen through that process. This doesn't bypass any of those things. I will respectfully say, whether this building is 8 stories or 15 stories or 26 stories, the zoning bylaw allows up to 26 stories. We don't know right now what that would be, but the shadow would be there regardless, whether it was 6, 8, 15, 25. But again, those things will be outlined through the others. I think that captures most of your questions. And I will reiterate that I'm absolutely willing to sit down and work with you and the local councillor and with your organization to try and resolve any concerns that you do have with regards to access, as we discussed. I'm going to ask, does any member of council have any questions to the applicant, or sorry, to the delegate?
Can I go ahead?
Councillor Bauer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. I don't specifically have a question, except maybe for Ms. Big, the first presenters. I think you sent an email with a list of questions. Would you like to come back and ask those questions from your email, or have you already received a response? Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had all the questions asked for that presenter. Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. I was actually going to come back to that after this delegation, but you saved me the trouble. Does any other member of council? Oh, I see Councillor Henry. 1 second.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. More of a comment, and I will just say, with regards to the meeting, I was also a little surprised to receive the correspondence this morning, because I thought we had a lot of ideas in play to mitigate the current traffic situation, so that moving forward with the new development, we were preempting additional traffic that would come to the area. And again, I'm your strongest advocate, and I have been working with the mayor closely with this, and look forward to future meetings to help as best as possible to mitigate the current traffic situation. Thus, going into construction for Roslyn Road, we've already found hopefully a workaround. So look forward to those meetings coming up. Thank you.
Does any other member of council have any questions to the delegate? Seeing none, does any other member of the public wish to come forward and make delegation on this application?
No further members of the public, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I did see Mr. Tarski there in the audience, so would the applicant please come forward? I think council might have some questions.
Good afternoon, members of the council, mayor, members of the public. My name is Denis Tarski. I'm with Leading Developments, proponent on this application for a Roslyn. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tarski. First name I see in the speakers list is Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, or good afternoon, and good afternoon to Mr. Tarski. So currently, you have a few major projects. We approved 190 Westney, 310 Kingston. That's a lot of major projects. The OP should be done within about a year. About our OP? No? Well, how long? Sorry, longer? Sorry, Mr. Rodowski.
It's quite a lengthy process. It's probably like a 3 or 4 year process.
Okay, fair enough. Do we truly believe we'll have shovels in the ground before the 3-4 year process is done? Because the last time we spoke, and I looked this up, I asked you about 190, and at the time, about 14 months ago, you said we'll have shovels in the ground within 10 months, and yet here we are. So I just want to make sure that we kind of hit these timelines, because the expediency of this is a pretty big factor of this.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Lee. Valid questions. Just to give a bit of background, you're correct about a number of large-scale projects in the town of Ajax. We are proud to be a growing player in terms of new housing brought into town of Ajax. 310 Kingston is a 25-story rental building started construction. We are currently in the shoring works. Expected completion by the end of 2027. 190 Westney was approved by the council through similar methods last September. That's a 62-story twin tower in Ajax Go. We are finalizing detailed design and aiming for submission now with hopefully start of construction coming spring. One thing to keep in mind, it takes about 1 year to do a detailed design of the building once we have the zoning approvals in place. It's a costly process. The budget for detailed design of the building at 190 Westney is $4 million, which of course cannot happen without financing, etc. So getting uncertainty of zoning approvals out of the way is essential to start this process. We received the approvals past September, a year ago. So we're now finalizing those designs. We are also aiming to achieve tier 2 level under new Ajax Green standards. It's a large building, so it would be nice to have it much more energy efficient than was previously built. It is extremely challenging. There is quite a lot that have to be reworked to meet those stringent standards introduced by Council of the town of Ajax, but we are trying to achieve it. For the project at hand, 154 Roseland, our time frame is completing the design, detailed design within a year. And that would allow us to start construction. Construction cycle of a building of this size is around 3 years, 2.5, 3, depends on exact details. So our current intent is to start construction, call it a year from now with the site works, and be completed 3 years thereafter.
Okay, so I'll flip this to you then. We know what's in it for you and your as a developer. Like, there's obviously a lot of benefit in doing this earlier. What would you say are the benefits to the constituents, and not the future constituents, the current constituents? Because this will cause some traffic issues. I mean, I think I'll ask staff this afterwards. Timelines are Roslyn should be done, but that's assuming we hit the timelines. What would you say is the benefit for the current constituents of Ward 2, which is where you'd be based out of?
Of course. This project introduces a different format of housing, quality of housing in Ward 2. Smaller apartments. When I say smaller, smaller than the townhomes or detached homes. So it's a smaller alternative for somebody who is on a budget. 154 Roseland is envisioned as a rental building. Our approach to rentals they're supposed to be higher quality than a typical condo, because with the condo, developer is out of the picture once a unit is sold, and people buying it off the prospectus, not realizing the layout is not functional, they're not comfortable there. With us, it's a complete opposite. We're designing the unit to make sure people are retained, enjoy their living in the building. So one of the reasons it takes a bit longer to design, because we still have to be mindful of the cost of the construction. We're also introducing better variety of amenities within the building, so you do have rooftop terraces, making the place more enjoyable for the tenants. So in short, the biggest benefit for Ward 2 is more compact, more attainable form of housing within their ward, on close proximity to public transit, and within the convenience of shopping right across the street and schools right around the corner. That's the essence of it.
You mentioned affordable housing, and in the agreement, it looks like it's only a 25-year affordable housing 5%, right? Why are we limiting that? Why wouldn't it just be perpetually keep the 5%?
The reality is, once a tenant is in, even though the provincial guidelines do not impose any rental controls at the moment on newer buildings, first of all, the expectation is it might be introduced down the road, at least within the next 25 years. So whatever affordability will be essentially locked in perpetuity, if that does happen. Second thing is, you cannot just double somebody's rent. To give you an example, an affordable units under newly finalized provincial standards is $1,200 monthly for a one-bedroom and $1,400 for two-bedroom, and $1,000 for a studio. This is less than 50% of what the market is, market rents are, and this is less than 50% of what the cost is to run those units. Just the property tax itself with the maintenance of the building is probably going to be more than this amounts per month. Then there's financing and cost of construction, etc. So we, as a developer, subsidizing those units from day one for the next 25 years. And realistically, it will probably stay more than 25 years by the time we're done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can double the rents, because this building is built after 2018. I thought there is no
That's what I'm
limits.
saying. You can, but then the expectation is if you double your rents, the tenant won't be able to pay it. And we don't want to turn the unit over just for the sake of getting an extra $1,000. It will cost you more to renovate the unit. So also we should realize it's a home of the person who is living there, lives there for a number of years. So we want to make sure our numbers work to service our debt long term, but we don't want to gouge the people like some other players doing, where they would buy an older building, renovate it forcibly, and then bring in new tenants, because that destroys other people's homes.
Right.
We are not in that game.
Okay. Chair, I have questions for staff. I assume there'll be a moment after this to direct them.
Sorry about that. Yes, absolutely. Once we get to the bylaws, we'll be able to ask all those questions to staff.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Mr. Tarski, I forgot to address the previous delegate's question about will there be commercial in this building?
Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Mayor, it is not intended at the moment. We are envisioning as a purely residential building. One of the reasons the building is set back from the Roseland, so there is no commercially viable frontage directly to Roseland. The setback is fairly substantial, so it is envisioned as purely residential at this stage. We do envision extensive amenities, playgrounds, and things like that around the building, but not commercial retail.
Okay, thank you. Does any other member of council have any questions on this application to the delegate? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
If I can add through Mr. Mayor, just one more answer perhaps to the previous speaker, David Park. One of the things you mentioned, they would assume the number of residents would be north of 2,000 people in a building, and the number of units is over 690. Currently proposed 548 units, so it's slightly smaller, although it's a large building. And the rule of thumb is there is about 2.5 persons per unit, blended average per building. So we're talking about 1,300 people living in a building. It is a large number of people, but it's substantially less than estimated. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to our next item, 5.2, again, public meeting, official plan amendment application, excuse me, OPA, excuse me, 24-A12 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z16/24, vacant lands immediately north of 1901 Harwood Avenue North. Similar proposal, although not quite as tall, on Harwood Avenue east side up near Taunton Road. We'll do the same process, go through. Does any member of the public wish to come forward and speak on this? If so, please come forward, sign in, and you'll have 5 minutes. Okay, I do see someone there. There you go. Please state your name and go ahead when you're ready.
Hey, my name is Dave Powell. Greetings, Mr. Mayor and Council. My wife and Lorraine and I are proud yet concerned 18-year residents of Ajax. We live near the intersection of Haskell and Harwood. We moved here in 2006 after 21 years in Pickering and were attracted by the community feel and quality of the Nottingham development. Like many others, we have always embraced a pride of ownership for both our own property and the community at large. This includes many everyday common courtesy respect items, such as outside home maintenance, sticker-free mailboxes, lack of littering, driveways and lawns not looking like car lots, and a safe, comfortable traffic flow that includes obeying traffic signs. Sadly, many of these items have deteriorated over the years, and there's a noticeable lack of caring and pride of ownership by a number of residents. But moving to the on-hand proposal to build two 19-story condos at 1901 Harwood, I believe that the Ladim developers have already gained the rights to build both the 60-plus story units by the GO station and on Kingston Road east of Walmart. They are currently seeking to build towers in at least 3 more locations: Bailey west of Westney, Roslyn next to the Pickering Christian School, as we just heard, as well as these 2 towers at 1901 Harwood. Ladim is obviously a moving force in Ajax and must have significant support. However, while I understand the overall necessity of creating additional housing units in Ajax, the placement and size of all new housing units needs to be critically and carefully considered to fit into the best practices for the existing community and not create traffic chaos. A major challenge to the Ajax I love is the chaotic and unsafe traffic flow on Harwood between Roslyn and Taunton that will be greatly exacerbated if the 2 proposed condo units are approved. Firstly, let's look at the current conditions on Harwood. At present, this 2.2-kilometer stretch of winding, mostly 2-lane road has 7 traffic lights, a very busy mosque entrance, a crosswalk at Haskell, and 2 entrances to Quarry Lane. Most of the northeastern Nottingham community exits Haskell onto Harwood right at the crosswalk and directly across from the very busy Spiceland Plaza's only entrance and exit. It is chaotic. Placing the crosswalk right at a bus stop where many unthinking motorists blindly pass, as they do, while at the same time anxious Spiceland patrons are eager to get in and out, while at the same time Nottingham citizens are also seeking an opening, has created a crazy traffic environment. Add to this the northbound Harwood motorists making a left onto Haskell, and the southbound Harwood motorists speeding down from Taunton is both an accident waiting to happen and a recipe for disaster at this crosswalk. Traffic, especially on Friday, is increased by the huge flow of motorists in and out of the mosque. The flashing lights of the ever-present police car to direct traffic also slows the traffic flow. The obvious traffic buildup of parents picking up and dropping off students at both high schools presents a twice-daily disruption, especially when some park illegally to wait for their kids. This is the current traffic flow, but we know we're about to see even greater traffic congestion with the upcoming openings of the Grandview Kids Facility and the Senior Citizens Facility. These 2 known and almost finished large projects will inject 2 more layers of traffic onto the already oversaturated Harwood. And I believe the mosque, to their credit, is contemplating building a much larger structure to accommodate their substantial growth. This will result in even more traffic on Harwood. Therefore, if these 2 proposed Ladim towers are allowed, the resulting increased traffic flow will greatly diminish both the community feel and the traffic safety of Harwood and greatly upset the taxpayers in the area. Before the last election, I had a great conversation with the mayor's likable father on my front porch. He convinced me that the mayor shared my values of dedication to family values and building a safe, friendly, and robust family-oriented community. I firmly believe that allowing the building of these 2 high-rise units on Harwood would be contrary to these very values. Please do not allow them to happen. Thank you.
Okay, before I open it up, thank you for your delegation. Before I open it up for questions from council, I do see Councillor Henry. I'm going to attempt to address some of your comments about Harwood Avenue and traffic, because I believe every member of council agrees that we have an issue with Harwood Avenue. That's why we have accelerated and moved forward the widening of Harwood Avenue all the way through from where it narrows just past, I think it's just past Notre Dame School to Taunton, and that construction is well underway. That intersection, that crosswalk at Haskell that you spoke of, sir, was a temporary measure, throwaway cost, which I hate to do, but I did support doing it because of safety in the area, because you are correct, it is a very busy intersection. That Spiceland Plaza is quite busy. That will be ultimately 4 lanes in the next, I believe, a year, complete, and with a full signalized intersection at Haskell and Harwood, which I think should alleviate a lot of the concerns about the traffic. As to what will be generated by this or any other proposals, those are things, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be vetted through site plan. And at that point, all of the studies, traffic studies, noise studies, everything else will be done through the site plan process, and we'll go through the full public. So today is, as I said, just zoning bylaw and official plan amendment to allow that site plan process to move forward potentially. So I hope I've answered a couple of your questions there. I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Henry as the first councillor questions. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with you with regards to the traffic in that area, what you said. It is a hot mess. Spiceland Plaza, there's an issue there, we're aware of it. In our discussions for the 2 proposed zoning for Ward 2 that we're speaking of today, in our meetings, myself and the mayor, we did have the discussions about what this is going to look like for the future of that area as a whole, a holistic approach, be it Harwood and Roslyn, Harwood and Haskell, Harwood and Taunton, what this is going to look like. And we have, as the mayor said, have been looking at when the construction will be happening in the different areas. So for Harwood widening, we're looking at the second quarter of 2026. And you will have a full traffic light at that intersection to help with the traffic coming from the plaza, the existing traffic, as well as the future traffic coming from the buildings in and around that area. With regards to the mosque, there has been many conversations between myself and Brother Wakas. We are looking at going into some conversations with the mayor about the future of what that looks like, the traffic of that area. So when we have you folks coming before us today and talking about this, don't think that we're not already behind the scenes having these conversations. What I can say is what has been solidified in conversations, because there's other people involved in them. So it's not falling on ears that are not listening. It was already in conversation prior to your arrival today, prior to any emails or phone calls I received on the issue. And there have been weeks of meetings with myself, the mayor, property owners, other key parties in the area to discuss current traffic issues to help mitigate before and around the widenings of both Harwood and Roslyn, to make sure that we are doing the best we can ahead of the situation. So please know that we're listening. And thank you for coming here today and for your presentation. I will have a question for the developer when that time comes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Henry, does any other member of council have any questions to the delegate? And I'm not seeing anybody in the speakers list, so thank you. I do see a member of the public in the speakers list that wants to make delegation, so I'm going to let them in. Here we go. Sir, you are muted, I believe. Oh, let's try this again. Please press your.
Mr. Masalia, when you connected to the platform this afternoon, did you connect to your microphone and audio? Okay, make sure that in the bottom center of your screen, there should be an icon of a head with lines emanating from it. If you could select that button, please. It doesn't appear you've selected that button. There we go. One moment. Please proceed.
Please go ahead.
Oh, we're still not getting audio from you, sir. So on the left-hand side of your screen, there should be settings where you can connect your device's audio.
A reminder to press the button in the bottom with the head again. There you go. I'll open the mic. Still muted. Okay, Sarah, can you let Ms. Masalia back in? There we go.
He should be able to unmute his microphone to speak.
No, he keeps turning off the speak button. He's got to leave that on.
Sir, if you could press at the bottom of your screen, we're not hearing you at all, unfortunately. There should be an icon of a head. If you press that, it should turn red. Now please try to speak. Unfortunately, we have no audio from you. So unfortunately, your device is not connected to the platform in terms of audio. You could try the settings on the left-hand side of the screen. There would have been a pop-up when you logged on to connect with your audio. And if that pop-up was not selected, you'll have to do it manually through your audio settings.
Is it kind of connected now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much. Sorry for the trouble. Dear council members and dear mayor, my name is Ankit Masalia, and I am the resident of 52 Quarry Lane. I'm not going to be representing the entire Quarry Lane, but my house is located directly in front of the proposed building that's going to be coming up. I have a couple of questions with regards to this. The first one is, in terms of time frame, when do we expect the shovels to be in the ground? I know we're just kind of converting the bylaw right now, but that would be my first question. The second question would be in terms of the safety, in terms of vicinity to the train tracks. Like having a first-hand experience, like we live in Quarry Lane, and whenever the train kind of passes by, we feel the vibrations of the trains that are moving here. And our structure are mostly freehold townhouses where we feel those vibrations. But when it comes to a condo building, which would be a high rise, what would be the safety precautions essentially that would be taken in terms of the development or design? And most of the questions, most of the concerns were certainly kind of raised by the first delegate, which kind of eluded most of my questions that I had. And those would be all set of questions that I have. Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you for your delegation. I'm going to get the proponent to answer that when he comes up after the delegation. So Mr. Tarski will be able to answer that question when he comes up about the specifics. Okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Does any other member of the public wish to make delegation on the matter before us? Please come forward and sign in and state your name. And
Art Sarzala, and I'm a Nottingham resident. I stand before you to discuss a matter that directly impacts our community, the proposed construction of two 19-story condominiums. While development can often be seen as progress, we must look into what this particular project and its consequence on our lives. First and foremost, let's address the issue of density. The planned condominiums will consist of 666 units, towering over our residential area, which is mostly built with two-story homes. That sheer height and bulk of these buildings will drastically alter the skyline, overshadowing our community and disrupting the harmony we have long cherished. One of the most significant concerns associated with these condos is the shadow they will cast on our neighborhood and on more than 500 two-story houses that would lie within its reach. Imagine living your life in a cozy home, surrounded by bright sunlight, only to have that light consumed by towering reflective glass structures. The shadow created by these condos will not only diminish the amount of natural light flooding into our homes, but will also affect our gardens, landscaping, and overall quality of life. This loss of sunlight could lead into a damp, dark living spaces, impacting the mental well-being and health of our families. Consider the reflection from the full reflective glass on those condos. While pleasing from a distance, these windows will create a glare that can be blinding for both pedestrians and drivers alike. The safety of our streets could be compromised, posing significant risk for our children walking to school and for adults traveling to work. Glare can also distract drivers, leading to a potential traffic incidents in an already busy area. Next, let's consider the environmental impact. The construction and presence of these condos will not only change our neighborhood character, but also its ecosystem. Increased density brings more vehicles, leading to congestion in our one-lane road and the elevated population levels. The rise in traffic negatively affects our air quality and contributes to a less healthy environment for our community. Let's think about the strain this development puts on our public services and infrastructure. Our roads, schools, and healthcare facilities are not equipped to accommodate this sudden influx of residents. Our children deserve quality education, and our families need access to essential services without overcrowding. The proposed condos do not just mean more neighbors. They indicate a fundamental shift in the resources available to our community. Let's not forget the potential decrease in property value. Families who have invested in their homes, building lives and memories in this neighborhood, risk seeing their investment diminish due to the new high-rise structures. The unique charm of our community, built upon two-story residences, will be compromised. While the city of Ajax may seem these condominiums as a step forward, we must stand firm as a community and advocate for our needs and concerns. The impact of these condos will resonate throughout our lives, diminishing natural light, compromising our safety, straining our infrastructure, and affecting our property values. Our voice matters, and together we must demand a development that aligns with the values and well-being of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does any member of council have any questions to the delegate on the delegation? I'll just try and answer a couple again. First, to the through the site plan process, as I've said. I have no doubt there may be some shadow effect, but I can't speak to what that is because, again, this is just a zoning bylaw, which will say it can be up to 19 stories, I believe it is. Do we know it actually is going to be 19 stories? We don't know that. What this does is sort of put some guardrails on the property of what can be there. Once that application is made, then those studies will come in, which will look at that specific project, and then we'll actually have some answers. So I don't have the answers for you on that, and nobody does actually at this point. To the property values, I, in my experience, have never seen property values go down in Ajax, regardless of development. People often think it will. It just does not happen. I think you can rest assured that's not gonna happen. As to the traffic, I think we've already spoken to Harwood Avenue being widened, and that will be done before this is complete if it was approved today and any application comes in. And I just want to touch quickly on infrastructure, because growth is supposed to pay for growth. And one of the things that happens through development is applicants pay development charges. And these are fees that are collected by municipalities in the region to pay for future infrastructure to accommodate that growth. If past councils had taken the attitude that we're done and we're not going to add any more housing because we don't have the infrastructure, respectfully, your neighborhood might not be there. That's not the way we operate. That's not the way we can operate. If we weren't here today to discuss the zoning bylaw amendments and official plan amendments, it would go through the normal process, which again is appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and something's going to be built there. I don't know what it's going to be, but it could be something very different, bigger, smaller, we don't know, but something definitely is going to be built there. So just to manage expectations, I think it's not realistic to happen. Definitely it's going to happen because that is the way growth is moving forward now today. It's density. We have fixed urban boundaries. We can only go up. The regional official plan has most recently been approved on those lands. And this is probably the first of what's going to be many applications of Harwood Avenue up to Roslyn, bringing in higher density. And that is just the reality. That is not something this council can really even say yes or no to. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. I wonder if the delegate could please come forward and answer any questions, please. Sorry, not the delegate, the proponent.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, Dennis Starsky, Ledim Developments, here to answer questions on proposal at 1901 Harwood, south of Taunton.
Mr. Tarsky, could you start by answering the questions regards to vibrations from the train and that we were not able to address from a prior delegate?
Yes. This is part of the detailed building design and site plan process, as you correctly mentioned, as well as a building permit application. Concrete building, which this is going to be, is behaving completely different than a 4-story townhome, which is a wooden construction. The vibration is present due to the railroad track. It has to be taken into consideration for the structural design of the building, and appropriate measures are taken to make sure there's appropriate comfort level for all the tenants and residents in the building we're proposing. Acoustic consultant, vibration consulting is part of our design team. They're being engaged on all our projects, and this particular project, because of proximity to the railroad tracks, they will have a bigger job to do to review all the design and structure of the building. Because of the proximity of the railroad at the back, another safety measure introduced is a structural parking, which is a 4-story parkade located on the east side of the building along the railroad, will function as a crash wall should a derailment ever occur. So the actual eastern wall of the parkade is designed to prevent a railroad car demolish the building in case something serious ever occurs in this area. This is a standard practice. It is subject to the guidelines and review of the Railroad Authority, which is also going to be circulated on this site plan application, and their feedback and requirements will be incorporated into approval and design of the building. To switch to some other questions from other proponents. In general, time frame for construction, about a year for a detailed design and securing initial approvals until start of a construction, and about 3 years for the actual construction cycle. So we hopefully can start a year from now, and we'll be done with the construction 3 years in. Major concerns raised by the delegates is the traffic and road infrastructure in the area. As mentioned by the mayor and the consuls, it is being widened. When we first came into Ajax back in 2005, I believe, the Harwood Avenue connecting to Taunton Road was just a dirt road. We were the ones who built the Spiceland Plaza. Back then it was just a very basic road, and it still remained very basic road until now, with only 2 lanes both ways. I'm very happy that this council is expediting the widening of this stretch of the road, because it is really needed, because by now the subdivisions to the west of Harwood are complete years ago, and more activity is happening in the area. So with the introduction of 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, and proper intersection, proper safeguards between different exits and entrances into the plazas and other buildings, it is going to be definitely a much safer road. Another thing, people quite commonly overestimate the number of traffic generated by new developments. When you look at the large tall buildings, you're assuming it's going to be gridlock forever. This is not the case. You can see any of the major arteries, Yonge Street in Richmond Hill, Yonge Street in North York, you have 2 lanes of traffic both ways, plus the public transit, and you have tall, shiny buildings, all serviced with no problems. But as we said, any traffic concerns are part of site plan application. Any improvements to the railroad are happening now and will be taking into consideration this development as well. Another concern raised by the third delegate, impacts to skyline and shadows. The reason this building is 19 stories is because we are respecting the 45-degree angular plane angle from the adjacent residential low density located on the west side of Harwood from their backyard areas. What it does is it provides you clear sight when you're standing. It's a universal standard throughout Ontario, except for Toronto, they actually reduce it to 75 degrees. When you're standing on your backyard, you obviously going to see the building, but it doesn't create this permanent shadow, no sun effect at all. Shadow study will be submitted as part of the site plan application. Our preliminary numbers show that there is not going to be impact greater than 2 hours a day, and the shadows are rolling. And this is the guidelines, once again, any building casts shadows. What you want to make sure is you don't cast permanent shadow, because when you cast permanent shadow, that's when the vegetation starts to die. Your neighbor's backyard is no longer the same because there's no sun. So the standard guidelines is less than 2 hours impact per day, rolling throughout the day. And obviously it's a different time of the day throughout seasons. It's not the same in the winter as it is in the summer. So this building will cast less than 2 hours shadow on any low-density residential in the vicinity. Glass glare. Valid concern for glass buildings. When you look at them and the sign shines right back at you, it could create concerns. The building has a different design of the podium, which is a sight level of any cars passing by, drivers, which also will be tinted glass and respectful of safety. Anything above that, 15, 16 story or whatever, doesn't shine back at somebody who is driving a car. So those considerations are also part of the detailed design of the building, which is a later stage site plan or building permit. I hope I covered all the concerns. There was another concern about property values. In our experience of 20-something years dealing with real estate, introduction of a quality, high-density development in the vicinity of established low-density residential neighborhoods does not deteriorate the pricing of the existing property values. One can look throughout the GTA to see it. So I don't really feel that this should be a concern for the property values. It's usually quite the opposite. This project has been in the making since 2012. That's when we initially approached municipality to introduce this project. We had to wait for almost 10 years until the official plan review for the whole region, Durham region, was completed to introduce conversion, which was approved. Throughout those years, we've been approached by numerous members of community saying that they would love to see something like that in there, which is a more compact form of housing in the places where they work, like a plaza we built on Harvard, or where they live, that they need a housing for their parents, they need a housing for their kids. They cannot spend $1 million or another town home or 1.5 million on another home. And what we're proposing is going to be fill this niche, located still within a community. And lastly, the first delegate mentioned that we should build the road and infrastructure and only then think about development. Obviously, bringing more people creates more strain on traffic, creates more strain on hospitals, on strains on everything. Now, there's two ways of dealing with it. You can say, let's not build new homes until all those things improve. They will never improve in this scenario. Or you can say we have to build homes because people need to live somewhere during a housing crisis, and also expedite all the other things. It's not one or, both of them have to be done together. So in case of Harwood Avenue, it is being expanded, and the current plans to widen it are before we complete the building. So any new traffic we introduce would be after the road has been improved and widened. I hope I addressed all the questions.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Lee, first member of council with questions. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair, and Mr. Jarsky. It's good to see you again. 1901 Harwood. My big concern, and I'm glad Mr. Masalia was on the line because I really had concerns about the Quarry Road. Quarry Road right now, the setback, I think, is set to 2 meters from the back, which I think that's considered the back. Like, so how high would that be then? So, you know, his house is on Quarry, across the street, right at the line. Is it going to be the 19 stories straight up, or will there be like a podium type thing to angle it off?
The setback on the Quarry side is much larger because Quarry development is actually using our lanes for their only point of access. The Quarry lane goes our land. We gave easement back when they were constructing this property. So our property, our building will be set up more than, whatever it is, 10 meters or so away from the edge of the Quarry lane property. Okay. So the whole width of Quarry lane is our setback. And then there's further setbacks within the development until the actual town homes, even the corner homes.
But the 10 meters back, and I appreciate some latitude, Chair, but this is more setback question, which is in the bylaw. But like, would that be 19 stories straight up from 10 meters back, or would there be like four-story podium
It
and then?
starts with, no, it goes flat on this side. So yes, it will be 19-story, 10 meters in.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, I have concerns about that setback not being enough, especially if you are, Mr. Masalia, living right at 52, where it's, I imagine looking at your backyard, looking at a 15 or a 19-story building, like without any sort of gradual sloping. But that answers my question. My next one is on, for 190, we made a big deal about ride shares. You provided ride share for that, for 190. It's in the MTSA. This is farther from the MTSA. I would make the argument that we actually need more type of ride share accommodations. Why wasn't ride share one of the provisions provided in this building?
To you, Councillor Lee, the parking proposed for this building is significantly larger numbers of parking per unit.
7.5, right? 0.75?
Just look it up, just a second. Okay, I believe it is 0.75 per unit. Yes, 0.75 per unit plus 0.14 for the blended visitors and commercial. So a total of 0.89, almost 0.9 per unit.
So you, based on your kind of calculations, you don't think a ride share is warranted for something like this?
Ride share, the way we see it, ride share is part of the amenity in any of our buildings. So the way we envision it, it would be introduced here. It's convenient for the residents. It also makes some money down the road in perpetuity. So it is in our interest to introduce some kind of ride share and expand it as needed. The parking rate proposed here of 75%. So 75% of units will have a parking spot. 25% of units will be dependent on the public transit and active transit, which is walking, biking, whatever. And it is our experience by from other similar projects in the similar areas of a GTA nowadays that 25% of the units they desire, or they cannot afford the car, or they don't want to drive the car, or they cannot drive a car due to the age restrictions because they are retired and older age. So those 25% of units cater to them. But in addition to that, the car share will be part of the building and not restricted only to the ones with no cars. If you have a one car in a family and you need a second car because two, you have to take one, it's right there.
I would also argue, however, like your reality of Harwood and Taunton, I mean, like, where am I going to walk to, or where am I going to bike to? You have the Spiceland Plaza there, but after that, I have to go all the way to Westney for Besco, or all the way to Rosslyn and over for like a supermarket. Just using a supermarket as a basic amenity. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, I have concerns about mobility of these 680 units, right? Is what we're aiming for.
666.
660. Sorry, I was just looking at the maximum. You're right. So those were my concerns regarding this. You know, the mayor brings up a very valid point. I think once we finish our OP in 3 to 4 years, we may end up permitting 19 stories anyways, whether the public wants it or not based on provincial legislation. So yeah, I'm more concerned about just building in these amenities, these safeties per se for these future residents, so that, you know, future councillors at the time, future residents don't have these issues or don't ask people why weren't these questions asked. So, Chair, those are my questions. Thank you.
If I may add something, Councillor Lee, for the 19-story, as you're saying, right, fronting on the existing lower density development, we have to understand that existing development and Quarry Lane is not a low density residential. This is a medium density townhomes which are 4-story high. The way they laid out much further away along Harwood. From all the planning perspectives, whenever you consider it height, appropriate height, when you're talking about low density, yes, you have people with backyards, different style, lifestyle. Whenever you have a 4-story townhomes, they're not much different from a typical apartment building. So in that sense, we do not see any conflict of taller building being next to a 4-story building. In addition to that, as mentioned, the 10 meters is just the width of the Quarry Lane there. Then there's a further setback on our side for a sidewalk around the building, and there's a further setback on their side. So as an example, with the 62 stories we're doing in Ajax Go, the rule of thumb is you go 12.5 meters setback of a tower from your neighboring property. We are providing close to that here with a 19-story building. So it is within the planning objectives of any area where you can introduce more compact, dense housing forms. Otherwise, all the town would be 4-story high.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to address the concern with regards to, you mentioned if there was ever a derailment and something that you've built into the plan. Could you speak to that again, please?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Henry. The standard requirement for safety protection along any railroad is either a large enough setback, so in case of a derailment, a car will not reach a structure, or if you're building closer to it, you incorporate a crash wall, which is a practically concrete retaining wall with sufficient height and sufficient setback. So the way this building is designed, the parking, instead of being underground, is being above ground at the back of the building along Harwood. It is a 4-story parkade, and the 4-story wall at the back of it acts as a crash wall. So instead of being just a regular block wall or whatever, it is actually going to be strong enough to withstand an impact of a derailing car without impacting the rest of the structure.
And is that something that's required of you or something that you've done on your own?
It is mandatory for any building located along railroad corridors. You have it throughout GTA. It's a standard practice. And with intensification of different areas where the existing conditions have a railroad fairly close to the major arteries, it becomes more and more common. Because by the time you introduce a tall enough building in there, you can no longer respect a 30 meters traditional setback, which was usually used for very sparse development, where you have a 30-meter setback that's considered to be safe in case of a derailment. It's not going to reach the building. That's no longer feasible when you intensify.
Oh, okay, thank you. I think that answers my next question because I was looking at the development in question on my computer from an aerial view, the current development that's already there, Cordeley Lane, and I'm not seeing this wall there. And is it because they have a further setback than what you're allowing for your building? Is that correct?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Henry, they do have a protection berm constructed along the railroad at the back of their subdivision. It is virtually impossible to see on the satellite image, but when you visit the property, there are some measures introduced. Plus the setback of their buildings away, because there is a driveway, I believe, at the back of their subdivision.
Understood. And let me ask you with regards to traffic, and we've heard and we know, and I've verified with staff that Harwood is going to be widened in the second quarter here. Is it second? Second quarter of 2026. With regards to the traffic that'll be leaving the building, the development, and I'm just asking, I know this is not part of this, but I'm gonna just ask, there's no plan to have an easement or a split with a Spiceland Plaza and to utilize the light that'll be going in there to help mitigate the traffic concerns?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Henry, this is an excellent question. That was our original intent. The plaza, the way it was designed to be a complete whole thing, including this piece back from 2005 and 6. With the 3 points of access on Harwood with a central point, now would be getting the signal-less intersection. Our initial plans for this building, which we presented to the town, had a connection where cars could go through the existing plaza into the building and then drive through and exit through as well. It's a complete mix development where you can enter and exit through any point. It was suggested by the town's traffic staff to eliminate this connection, so we're currently proposing only to utilize it for loading space and garbage pickup on one side of this building. But then the main entrance would be through Harwood and through Corey Lane. Once again, this is a site plan details where exact most efficient access is going to be. We're okay either way to respect town's staff preferences. So my understanding is we would be preparing a traffic analysis study to figure out what's the best course of action, and town staff will provide their feedback whether they like it or not. So we can do it either way. But our initial thought was to introduce a direct connection between this new building and existing plaza, yes.
Interesting. Mr. Mayor, is that something that's still open for discussion? Or are we deciding that?
We're not deciding that. We're just doing zoning bylaw and official plan amendment. That would be dealt with through site plan.
Is it something, okay, so it's still up for discussion then, yes?
I assume. Mr. Romanowski, are you able to clarify, please?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Henry, yes, those will still be on the table for discussion through the site plan review process.
Excellent, okay, I look forward to that. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. I don't see any other names in the speakers list, so thank you, Mr. Tarski. That concludes this item on the agenda for bylaws. The next item we have 5.3 of the public meeting official plan amendment application OPA 24-813 zoning bylaw amendment application Z17/24 for 493 Bailey Street West. I will just open with, this is similar to the other two. The only difference in this case is this is part of the MTSA, the major transit station area. This has recently, through Bill 185, had any maximum height and minimum parking requirements removed from these lands. I felt it important to bring this forward to, like I said before, put some guardrails on this. My understanding right now under Bill 185 is the applicant can come and build a 100-story building with no parking. I don't think that is going to be helpful for anybody. Through this, I have had discussions with TRCA. I was a little surprised to get their letter today as well. We'll continue those discussions, but by having this zoning bylaw amendment, at least that sort of puts some criteria onto this, as well as brings in an affordable component. I believe in this case we have a higher amount of affordable component if CMHC financing is achieved, and I believe rideshare and that would be part of this as well, but I don't recall absolutely. But at least gives us some sort of requirements rather than just sort of an open, come build whatever you want. Again, as this is a public meeting, I will open it up. If any member of the public or anybody online wishes to come forward, please come up to the front.
I don't believe we have any members of the public for this application, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I believe some members of council might have some questions, so I would ask that the applicant please come forward.
Here to answer your questions.
There we go. Thank you. I see Councillor Dines. Regional Councillor Dines, please go ahead.
Thank you. Your property here backs onto the creek, and TRCA has setbacks for those types of developments. What is the setback that you will be allowing for the hazards or on the bluff of the creek, that kind of thing, from the top of the crest?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dias, we are not only doing a setback, we're actually conveying a strip of 10 meters wide of the property to TRCA. And this is a requirement whenever you build next to sensitive properties. Instead of just doing a setback and then retaining the ownership of a setback, and then theoretically down the road things may happen, we slice it off as part of the approval process, and this will be conveyed at no cost to TRCA and become an extended area of their protected property.
I think the original ask from TRCA was 16 meters for the hazard slope, top of bank, and then out to the tree line.
They don't have an exact guideline of how much is supposed to be conveyed. It is every time subject to exact conditions on site. As an example, the creek it's a winding creek within the wooded area, so it is a few meters away. Also, the top of the bank is also a few meters away from the existing property line. What have to be maintained is a minimum safe distance to maintain slope stability for the top of the bank, which we will be respecting. It's a technical exercise. And the 10 meters is acceptable and done in many other developments in similar situations.
Thank you.
I don't see any other members of council in the speakers list, so thank you, Mr. Tarski, for coming forward. This concludes the public sections. Let me find my place. My apologies. There we go. Moving on to items of correspondence. Do we have any polls? Not seeing any councillors in the speakers list, so I have, and we'll go by Ward 2 this time, moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Regional Councillor Lee, that the report dated October 21st, 2024, containing items of correspondence be adopted. If there's no questions or comments, are there any questions or comments on any of the items? Seeing none, could you open the vote, please? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Those items are received. Next item is item 7.1, Community Affairs Planning Committee, October 7th, 2024. Go by Ward 3, moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Regional Councillor Dyes, that the report dated October 21st, 2024, oops, my apologies, that the Community Affairs and Planning Committee report dated October 7th, 2024 be adopted. Questions or comments? Seeing none, please open the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. I just had a comment about the amendment number 4, which is on page 31 of the agenda. And it's been bothering me since the meeting when I asked for this amendment regarding accessory buildings to be considered for food pickup and takeout, that I mentioned beloved bean and basket, but it actually was meant to be our beloved biscuits to baskets. So that's been driving me crazy since then, so I'm just putting that in the meeting today. That's it, thank you. Nothing wrong with bean and basket. No, nothing wrong with bean and basket. Now, actually, maybe I can ask, I do have an amendment, but I think this is not the right time to bring it. So never mind, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Bauer. If it's what I'm thinking of, I think you're going to want to do that under 7.4.1 under departmental reports. Are you referring to the deferred motion that you brought?
Yes, you're correct, Mayor Collier, thank you.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. So if there's nothing further on the Community Affairs and Planning report, please open the vote. Okay, that carries. Next item, General Government Committee. Back to Ward 1, moved by Regional Councillor Crawford, seconded by Councillor Tyler Morin, that the General Government Committee report dated October 15th, 2024 be adopted. Questions, comments? Seeing none, please open the vote. That carries. Next item, 7.3, summary of advisory committee activities. Moved by Regional Councilor Lee, second by Councilor Henry, that the summary of advisory committee activities dated October 21st, 2024, as attached to the meeting agenda be received for information, and that the recommendations contained therein be referred to staff where applicable. Questions or comments on the advisory committee reports? Councilor Bauer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Just a comment about the Heritage Advisory Committee and the fabulous, excellent tour that they ran and coordinated a few weeks back at the Friends Cemetery. I attended it. It was so well done and well researched. I just would like to give them a shout out for a great job. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Okay, please open the vote. The clerk has messaged me that my camera is off. Actually, it's not. Let me just turn this off, turn it back. Yeah, it's been working the whole time. It stopped working for some reason. I believe that carried. Moving on to our next item. Departmental report 7.4.1 PDS 2024-21 Zoning Our Future Town of Ajax Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Review. Councillor Bauer, you brought forward a motion on the 15th, I believe it was, deferred till today. Oh, from October 7th, sorry, deferred till today. We do have the, actually, sorry, I understand you might have an amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Collier. And I would like to appreciate my colleagues for taking the time to consider this. And I know I kind of threw it on the floor that day, and maybe it was a little hasty, so there was not a lot of room for discussion or information. So I did speak with staff. I appreciate their time very much. And I would like to offer this amendment regarding the measurement of heights of homes. So the amendment is that staff be directed to report to council on amending the zoning bylaw to measure the height of homes from peak of the house instead of the midpoint of a peaked roof for consideration at a future meeting of the Community Affairs and Planning Committee. I do not have a seconder at this time, so I saw Regional Councillor Lee. Thank you. And if I just want to mention, of course...
Okay, Regional Councillor Lee, please.
So I'll just speak to it very quickly. I think that's self-explanatory, but we already have an 11-meter maximum, and what the amendment discusses is just how it's being measured. So if I had a couple questions. I did speak with staff, but I'd love to ask them out loud for everybody. And it would be Mr. McCullough, thank you. So can you please explain to us how are heights measured in Ajax, and how would shifting to measurements from the peak change this?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. So currently the definition of height measures different building types in different ways. So I think I mentioned this in the council meeting, but if it is a flat roofed building, it's measured to the highest point of the wall of a flat roofed building. But it differs from a peaked roof. So in a peaked roof situation, the height is measured to the midpoint between the eaves and the peak of the building. So essentially in that situation, you could have dwellings that are higher than the permitted 11 meters, just to account for that portion of the roof that is above that midpoint.
Okay, thank you. And how does this compare, like Ajax measurements versus other municipalities?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bauer. So staff have taken a preliminary look at this, and generally we fall in the middle to the high point, but I think it would really benefit council and the public if staff were to take that back and really report on our findings. And I think that would be of benefit to council before making any decisions.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, and thank you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, you are next.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to appreciate Councillor Bauer for not, not making us make a decision kind of without the full information. Happy to support a report, come back to us, and we can make a more fulsome decision there. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
You are welcome. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. Through the chair, how long will this report take? Roughly.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Henry, we'll need a few months, really. It'll be early next year. We were hoping to bring the bylaw back next year, but I think we can build this report in, if possible, if we could report back early in 2025. And then just to clarify these final elements, we're still working in the background on all the other changes, and that's going to take us some time. But certainly if we can report back early in 2025, that would be of benefit to us.
So, sorry, it'll be reported back as a whole, or it'll be reported back separately?
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, I think it would be beneficial to report back separately before bringing the final bylaw forward.
Agreed. I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't want it to get lost in everything else if we're going to have a separate report on this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It will not get lost. I see nothing further. Let's call the vote on the amendment, please. Thank you. That carries. Now, I just realized I think I've made a slight error here. I need to bring the main motion on the floor before we start amending it. So I'm going to do that. We're up to Ward 3 now, I think. So we're going to move by Regional Councillor Dyes, seconded by Councillor Bauer. Oh, what have we got here? That the main motion be amended by adding the following, which we've added. So we'll bring that. Is that on the screen, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the only language for this vote would be exactly what was just on the screen.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. We'll call the vote on the matter as amended. That carries. I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Lee for the next item to do with the parking while I log off and log back in and see if I can get my camera to work. So Councillor Lee, please take over.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. So we're on to item departmental report 7.4.2, CS 2024-17, parking exemption for Commercial Avenue neighborhood. Could I get someone to move, please? We're just on the parking exemption report. Could I get a mover? We see Councillor Bauer, seconded by Regional Councillor Dyes. Any questions? The recommendation currently is the report entitled Parking Exemption for Commercial Avenue Neighborhood be received for information. Anyone want to comment? I see Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. And I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to staff, because this was sort of thrown on the floor at the last meeting. And I appreciate the work that went into it. I've had time to think about it. It's a thorough report. So I appreciate the residents who came and asked for us to consider this. So I think it was our duty to come back with some information that we've all had a chance to look at it. And something that sticks out to me, and it was mentioned at the meeting, was, the importance that if we make an exception in one area, we have to make it in another area. Or if there's something happening over here that it's, we have to look at it. So I was very torn, because this neighborhood beside commercial, is unique. It's in our great, sort of near the downtown area. And there is some stuff happening in that area that makes it unique. So I felt the right thing to do to ask for information to make an exception for these folks. Since that time, I have driven through that area, through other areas of Ward 3, Ward 2, Ward 1, and focusing solely on parking, it is not the only neighborhood that is having these troubles. So, there's that. And then, so I thought, okay, if we make an exception for this area because of what's happening beside it, unique to them, we could also have, someone mentioned the neighborhood up north in Ward 2 by the mosque, which there's very busy traffic, very congested area at certain times of the day and week. And that neighborhood might also ask for an exception for parking because of what's happening beside them. If we look at beside the hospital or long-term care or other facilities that have lots of traffic, lots of problems, lots of issues, if we make an exception for one, it can be argued to make it for another. So I feel that a positive outcome that I read, there's lots of suggestions and considerations in here, that, and also the creation of a special committee, I believe it was called. I'm sorry, I lost the page. I didn't mark it down, but maybe I can ask, would it be Deputy CAO Cooper to talk about, that special task force for the area?
Through the chair.
Oh, thank you.
To Councillor Bauer. Pardon me? Oh, sorry. That special neighborhood task force or group that we're going to try to achieve is going to meet monthly until we can get some solutions, on the ground solutions, and working together with the neighborhood. That'll be done through the Public and Strategic Affairs Office, and our first meeting is early November. The meeting has already been identified, the letters have already been sent out to all the residents, and we just really want to hear from them, and also bringing in experts where we can. The region of Durham has offered to attend one of the upcoming meetings that we have. So it's really about listening at the beginning, seeing what the concerns are, and then seeing what we can do on the ground to find solutions.
Thank you, and I appreciate that that is happening. I think it's fantastic, and I hope that the residents also feel that way and take use of that resource because it's being offered to them. And I think that is an exception. And some of these considerations, are these the types of things you'll discuss this report?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Bauer.
Anybody, yeah, no.
Yes,
Yeah.
they will be dealt with through the
Okay.
future report, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Because one that did stick out with me that I think I've spoken with residents, a couple of them in that area, is the alternative for an off-site parking area, which I don't know how that would work out, but I think could be a viable option for sure. But again, thank you to those residents for coming forward, for sharing their thoughts and their concerns, and having passion to be engaged and find solutions. Thank you to staff for coming back with a report that gives us lots of great information and the opportunity to come up with some stuff that will work and be fair across the town. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Next, we have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask a question not related to this report, but related? So it has to do with this community. I'll ask a question, then you can just say whether or not it's good or not. There was a couple of things that came out of that presentation. There was about the garbage at the back. I would like to know if we've been able to establish a solution for that garbage in the back. I know it's not our problem, but it is a problem. And I also got tagged in a Facebook page about the front of that plaza. So perhaps the property manager needs nudging. I know our manager bylaws on it. And also about the field or the piece of property beside the property, this neighborhood. Are we able to make that part of our maintenance schedule for keeping the grass cut?
Yeah, we'll allow it. I think it's Director Meredith, or, oh, sorry, excuse me. Derek?
It's both of them, I think.
Rock, scissors, paper?
I'll field the part about the grass cutting.
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford. Yes, we're working hard with the property owner at the back of that plaza. They're having a major issue as well about residential neighborhood driving in and dumping off the garbage in the middle of the night. While we've tried to be sympathetic, we have now issued orders to ensure that the next time we find it overflowing, we've explained to them that we will deal with cleanups through our contractors and billing the property tax. That we're essentially now saying that the issues in the rear that are affecting the neighborhood are theirs to deal with proactively and find a permanent solution to ensure that it doesn't keep happening. In relation to the properties on each side of the subdivision, the vacant lots, we are working at getting those properties cut regularly and cleaned. The issue is we call them abandoned all the time, but they're not abandoned. They're lands that have never been developed.
So somebody owns it. It's not us.
Correct. The two lots on either side, on the north and the south side of that subdivision are privately owned, and they're working through with the planning department to do development on both. It's a slow process, but they're not abandoned in that it's a building that nobody's paying attention to or no one's living there. As part of the regular work that we do with the Office of the CAO and our tours, we're constantly checking those lots. And several times we find out that they're being occupied with encampments. And then there's a process that we go through to have that cleaned up as well. But cutting back the brush and cleaning the grass, we've been doing that too.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to follow up because they were two takeaways from that meeting. Thank you.
I believe Director McLarty wanted to add.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to add, too, that the mayor did speak to the property management group at the plaza, and they had committed to looking at a compactor waste disposal solution for the back of the site as well. They were investigating that through their procurement and purchasing office.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Just more of a comment to Manager of Bylaw, Mr. Hannon. Bravo, because when you get a call from the mayor asking you to take care of the garbage on your property and you've got a solution 2 months out, between now and the 2 months, you take care of your property. So bravo, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. So the recommendation on the table right now is to receive information. We have moved by Councillor Bauer, seconded by Regional Councillor Dyes, and we will call the vote. And that passes. I'll now be handing this back to Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee. I think I got my audio or my video sorted out. Not sure what happened there. Moving on to our next item, we're moving on to business arising from notice of motion. The first one is an amendment to the procedural bylaw brought by myself and Councillor Bauer.
Sorry, Chair, it's actually Regional Council reports.
Where are we? Thank you for that correction. Regional Council reports. Are there any Regional Council reports? Councillor Crawford. Oh, press your button again. It's not showing up on my screen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Really quickly, transit was canceled because of no items. Works was very light, but at Committee of the Whole, I thought we had asked these to be referred to all of our municipalities, but there were 3 motions that were brought forward. I believe they came out of FCM. The first one was a motion regarding enhancing shelter support for women and survivors of intimate partner violence. Is there a way, I'm pulling it out of the regional agenda. Is there any way that we can support that? Like, it's not actually been sent to us, and I'm just wondering, there are 3 very important motions. A motion requesting immediate federal government support for asylum claimants, yeah, in municipalities, and then federal government support for food banks, and then a motion regarding the harassment of elected local government officials. The 4 motions I would like to be able to endorse. I just, without it being in our correspondence, I'm not exactly sure how that happens.
I suspect they might not have made this last batch, and they may be in the next batch of correspondence for next month's meeting.
Okay.
But if we wanted to deal with them today, I think it would be a matter of, is it just me or is there a lot of echoing?
It's just you.
Okay, it's just me. It would require suspension of the rules and bringing a separate motion to endorse. If we wanted to do that, I would suggest sending that to the clerk to work on some wording that we can deal with.
Well, and also nobody on council can read them, right? So it's just me pulling it out of the regional. So should we wait till next month? Okay, all right, I'll wait, thanks.
Okay. Any other regional council reports? Seeing, hearing none. We were all at the same meetings. We dealt quite a bit with budgets as well. And the budget guideline has been set. So the different departments are working on achieving those. I guess as far as regional council, I'll just say I'm not there because I am in Boston attending the International Association of Chiefs of Police in my role as chair of the Durham Regional Police Board. So lots of very interesting information that I'm looking to bring back and new initiatives, and we'll be sharing that with council at a later date. Questions on the regional council reports? Seeing none, let me just pull up the resolution. I believe we're back to Ward 1, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Regional Councillor Crawford, that the Regional Council reports of October 21st, 2024 be received for information. Those in favor? And that carries. Now we're moving on to business arising from notice of motion. The first is an amendments to the procedural bylaw brought forward by myself and Councillor Bauer. I have distributed this to council. I think we've answered any questions. There was one minor amendment that we made internally, which was to add a second option of speaking if a councillor wanted to. We didn't want to limit discussion. Other than that, this is just very simply adding the timer clock, which we use at the region, which is now an option with our new technology here, just to sort of bring us into compliance. And I would ask for your support. Councillor Bauer, did you wish to speak as a seconder? Yes, I see your name one second. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Yeah, I just wanted to, I reiterate what you say about formalizing procedures that are already happening. The item that was specific to me is special meetings, section 10.8. When considering a special meeting of council or one of its standing committees to deal with public planning matters, the mayor or members will consult the availability of all the councillors for the affected wards. We had this summer and past summer where special meetings were called for specific wards, Ward 3, and there was some scheduling conflicts that not both members of council could attend. So I know that is something that we already take into consideration, but it wasn't written anywhere in the bylaws, so I wanted to have that formalized. And then my only other comment really is, I think it's good that we have procedures and guidelines and rules, et cetera, especially just a quick reference to some of the goings on of our neighboring councils recently, and the general decline of decorum and rule following, and I think that's what makes our council so special is we don't play those games. So I was happy to put that change in. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Henry, you're next.
Thank you. And there we go. The echo's gone. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bauer, for 10.8 because that was very much needed. I do agree with you on that. I wanted to ask a question with regards to, and just to clarify, when we talk about 2 5-minute times each, and I'd like to ask this of the clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that something that was already happening? I believe when I was trained for chairing meetings, Jason had told me that every person, when I'm chairing, gets 5 minutes each, a round each of 5 minutes. Sorry, 2 rounds, 5 minutes each.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the amendments today speak to the speech timer being applied and shown on the screen, and that the clerk will operate that. So it has not changed the amount of time. It's still
Oh,
the
it
5
has not
minutes.
changed the amount of time?
No.
Okay, so through the chair, sorry, to the clerks again, asking this question. So why does it need to be written about the speech timer if the meetings were already being timed internally?
I can answer that.
Can you?
Well, I was keeping an informal timer. And to be fair, I didn't want anybody to think that there was any favoritism or anything else to any member of council over another. So part of this is to just formalize that. And as we have been using, the countdown timer has been running for a few weeks now.
Yes.
I think it just gives us a guideline. It's up to the chair and their discretion whether they are going to be very strict with that or not. I think I've shown I haven't been very strict with that. I think the meeting that Councillor Bauer was referring to about the one-on-one daily, I think I let you have 25 minutes. So it's up to the discretion of the chair, but without formalizing it in the policy and procedural bylaw, it is a bit problematic. So this is just formalizing the process.
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing that up, because that was kind of precedent setting. So thank you for the local councillors. But I did want to ask, so just to clarify, when I myself am chairing a meeting, like the last meeting that I chaired, CAP, you'll notice there was a lot of back and forth. At that time, yourself and Councillor Bauer had some extra opportunities to speak. I did not limit that. So that is still within my realm as a chair, correct, through legislation, that I can give that extra time?
Absolutely. It's at the discretion of the chair. Now, to be clear, someone can still call a point of order because it is, hardwired in the procedural bylaw after today. And that will again be up to the chair to enforce as well.
Okay. Wanted to clarify that. I'm a little bit more of a lenient chair sometimes, especially to my colleagues, to make sure they have time to ask the questions they need to make their decisions. Thank you.
Chair, we can't hear you right now.
See, I muted because we didn't want to echo. Councillor Lee, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have some concerns with this, but in the spirit of collaboration, I'm willing to see how it works in future council meetings. Just forewarning, though, because we are limited in time, that includes responses. Like we may be in the position where we may be a bit rude in cutting off the answers to ensure we get the answers that we want in an appropriate amount of time. So I'm just warning council that may happen, or I may have to say, okay, that's great, I'm on to my next question, and I don't hope that's not viewed as poor decorum, rather me maximizing what little time I do have. So just making that comment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bauer, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Collier, and thank you, Regional Councilor Lee, for bringing that up, because I had the very same concern. And maybe I can just ask either Ms. Grassi or Ms. McClarty. We did talk about it, and maybe you can make comments on that time limitation for the 5 minutes.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, as this is something brought forward by the mayor, I think he may be able to provide some additional comment on this, but this time maximum was identified by the mayor as something he wanted to bring forward as a procedure bylaw amendment, as he said, with the speaking timer running. it is something that we've seen at Durham Region happening. And as over half of our members of council do sit on regional council, I think that there is some comfort with those speech timers and a little bit of familiarity. So it's something that the mayor has brought forward as a procedure bylaw amendment today.
I'll just add quickly. Thank you, Jacqueline. I did also speak with the regional clerk and have him send over an email to our clerk with regards to the experience at the region, because they use the exact same software that we use for the meetings. And it might be better coming from the clerk, but just for, again, sort of conformity, you are correct. 4 of us sit at the region. We're used to this on a regular basis. At the region, they do have someone that pauses the timer. In our situation, it's going to be too onerous for us to have a staff person specifically starting and stopping. When I'm chairing a meeting, I use that discretion. For instance, when we were asking the applicant for our zoning bylaw amendments, went over time by about 3 minutes answering the questions. But again, I'm not going to cut them off because, they're answering the questions that have been asked. So, I mean, again, it's up to the discretion. This is more just to, if there is ever a time where, somebody is gone way, way, way over, or is, I don't know, I can't even think of a situation that without it actually being stated in the procedural bylaw, it leaves the chair in a bit of a difficult position to enforce things. Okay, so it is up to the chair. I think I've demonstrated the last several meetings that, and have other councillors as well, that we're going to be reasonable. But again, this is just about having the formal process if needed.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. See, and I still have 1 minute and 58 seconds left of my first 5 minutes. Yeah, maybe I can ask Ms. Grassi. We did have a conversation about it and just about, everyone sort of monitoring the timeframes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. So we've evaluated some of the opportunities that we have to operate a speech timer and look at the start-stop time and the different opportunities that we have to operate those throughout meetings and how that would work with different interruptions as staff answer questions or delegates answer questions or points of order arise. And we've shared all of those experiences with the mayor as he brought forward this notice of motion, and this is where the motion has landed today.
Okay, thank you very much. And but Regional Councillor Lee, I appreciate your comment. I do share it, but I think that you're right. We should give it a try. That was all I wanted to say, Mayor Collier. Sorry. Yeah, look, I have 45 seconds left. Let me tell you about my weekend. No, thank you.
It's nothing saying we need to use it all. All right, I'm not seeing any other speakers, so I will call the question. Please open the vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the temporary expansion of the occasional use parking permit system. Moved by press your speaker button.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. You cut out there for a minute. So this is moved by Councillor Henry and seconded by Councillor Bauer. Whereas the residents have expressed that their parking needs are changing and they would like more parking opportunities for visitors, for visiting friends and family, and options where their driveways are inaccessible due to landscaping and home construction projects. Whereas townwide parking master plan to identify needs and solutions is scheduled to be initiated in 2026. And whereas an interim solution such as the expansion of an existing program could support residents' parking needs until the master plan is completed. And whereas the town offers a program, the occasional use parking program permit system, which allows residents, my phone is going crazy here, residents to apply online for up to 17 occasional per year and per license plate. The first 5 are free, and they are allowed 12 at $12 per permit plus tax to park on residential streets for 24 hours with some restrictions. So this, that the bylaw now be directed to temporary increase. This is a temporary increase, folks. The number of parking permits available through the occasional use parking permit system to provide 10 free permits and 18 paid parking permits per year per license plate, effective in January of 2025 until, and I repeat, until the parking master plan is completed, and I'm emphasizing this. So this is something that Councillor Bauer and I have worked on. We're looking for support from our council colleagues. We're not looking to mess up the system that already exists. We are very conscious of Manager Derek Hanna and how he would not like us to mess up the system and create some problems for bylaw. But we also recognize that our residents, there's been a lot of emails, especially, well, I can't say especially, we've all had the emails with regards to parking moving forward and constraints on budgets for a lot of houses in Ajax, and we're looking to give a little bit of relief here on a temporary basis. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Councillor Bauer.
I was going to do that, but I didn't see Councillor Bauer's name in the speakers list. There you go. Councillor Bauer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier, and thank you, Councillor Henry, for asking me to second this. You know, I think this is a temporary solution. It is fair and appropriate and applies across the town. So, you know, if we look earlier in the meeting, we talked about making exceptions for one neighborhood. This you know, will help them as well. Not as, you know, not a lot, or, well, yeah, a little bit, maybe. Yeah, so I think it's something fair to look at because 2026 is quite some time away. This is different. I'll just mention about the guest parking passes that are people who live in the waterfront affected by the waterfront parking management program. This is not regarding those passes. That I think is a report that will come back in the new year about how the year went. So just to clarify, that's a separate parking pass issue altogether. But thank you for this motion, and I hope all of council will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford, again, to the clerk, I don't have Councillor Crawford on my display here, so please activate her mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the mover, I guess, and seconder. My question was going to be around the waterfront parking. So that will be under a different umbrella. It's not covered in this. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none further, I'll just do a brief comment. Councillor Henry approached me with this, and normally I'm not willing to support something like this on a one-off basis, but knowing that we are doing our transportation master plan update and then our comprehensive review, I felt it was reasonable to give a fairly minor increase to these things, still subject to our current rules and provisions with regards to snow removal and everything else, just to give a little bit of relief until those other projects can be undertaken. So I will be supporting this today, and we'll see where we end up. Nobody else on the list, I'll call the question. Okay, that carries unanimously. And the third motion requesting permanent removal of tolls on the provincially owned portion of Highway 407. Councillor Henry and Councillor Crawford. Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to read the full motion. It is as it is, and it's a little lengthy there. We know what's happening in sister municipalities to the west of us, where the Ford government is building highways to make sure those folks get to move from A to B quite easy, or at least a lot more easy than they are now. We know that we have the same capability here in Durham Region as a whole, and we're being charged for it. And quite frankly, it's just not fair. So we're looking for, you know, a comparable here, apples to apples. The highway's already built. There's a charge being applied, and we'd like it removed. And we're going to speak to the province about this, and this is stage one of that with this motion, and hoping that I have support from council colleagues on it. Thank you.
Okay, next person to speaking list, Councillor Tyler Morin. There we go.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, absolutely, fully support this. And my question is, are you listening, Mr. Premier? Are you listening, Mr. Ford? And maybe those listening, somebody might think this is minor. We're just doing this today. But in the last term of council, this council voted in favor of removing tolls on the 412 and the 418. And I know Whitby did, and Pickering did, and Clarington did, and all the municipalities, as well as regional council, and it got done. So I think this is a nudge that hopefully the province is listening. I think it's really unfair for the people of Durham that have to pay this extra toll. So it's all pretty obvious what I'm saying, but I'm just saying I think this motion is very relevant because we all have to stand up and say, this is our position. Can you please help us? Let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, you are next. Once again, to the clerk, it's not in my box. So can you open the mic, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if the mover and seconder would add a friendly that Ajax Council hereby requests the province of Ontario to adequately fund healthcare, education, mental health. If you want to add that as a friendly. All right, thank you.
Sorry, what just happened? Was that friendly accepted?
No, it wasn't, Chair, but thank you for asking.
Sorry, I cut out there for a second. Can you repeat that?
Friendly was not accepted. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll call the question. And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to bylaws, I'm just going to bring all of these forward as one, but then I'm going to open the floor for discussion because I understand councillors might have questions on the three mayor's directives. So we'll just open it up at that point. Let me just find the resolution.
To you, Mr. Mayor, the bylaws requiring a 1/3 vote do have to be done separately as the vote is different than the remainder of the bylaws.
Okay, so let's do this. Let me just find the resolution. There we go. So I think we're back to Ward. Are we back to Ward 3? Moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Dyes. The bylaws number 64-2024, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, and 76. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, be read a first, second, third time and passed. So on those bylaws that are just under the standard majority vote, any questions or comments on those bylaws? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Thank you. Those carry. And going back to Ward 1, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Crawford, the bylaws number 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70 being the zoning bylaw amendments and official plan amendments for the 3 mayor directives on the properties be read a first, second, third time and passed. Questions? Councillor Lee. Madam Clerk, please.
Sorry about that, Chair, I got it. So thank you for, allow me to ask some questions. I guess my first one would be to Mr. Romanowski regarding Rossland and Harwood, the 2 Ward 2 ones. So I was led, we've had conversations with the mayor. Based on preliminary rough timelines, the expansions of Rossland would be complete before, 154 would begin. Is that generally our assumption?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Lee, that's our assumption.
And then the same thing for Harwood. The expansion for Harwood would be all completed before building the first shovel hits the ground, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then in regards to the setback and everything, these are things that, and the shadow study, I know it's site plan, but that's something, can you explain what, let's say planning had a problem with the shadow study on 1901. You would send that back to the developer and just say not approved, or how would that work? Since we have no say in it, you're the arbiter.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Lee. Well, the site plan process is kind of an iterative process, so we provide comments. If we had issues with something like a study, sun shadow, et cetera, traffic, we'd go back and forth with their professional consultants to try to rectify or troubleshoot a situation as it arises. And then we have delegated authority for site plan approval. So if there is an issue where it's something that we couldn't resolve, then I guess the applicant could appeal the site plan to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but we would try to resolve that through the site plan process.
And since these changes have come through, have we approved a site plan yet? Not necessarily this one's come in front of us, but we've approved a site plan and there's been no issues with the back and forth? Since this new legislation, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, through the new legislation, yes, we've approved site plans. Yes.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better, especially about the timing on the roads. This question's to the mayor. These are mayor directives. So I asked the same thing to the proponent. I'm asking to you now. What's the benefit in moving these 3 forward now that would benefit the current residents of Ajax? So not necessarily the future ones. We know the future ones, housing, affordability. But I'm saying like the existing people. Like what's in it for us to rush this now?
Well, I find actually thank you for the question, because we don't usually say this, and I think it's very important. First, to the site plan, we as a council receive the development tracker on a monthly basis. And so you can see in there the submissions and the dates and those things. So I have my weekly mayor's meetings, and those are things that I ask questions on fairly regularly. Where are we on these? What are the comments? What are the issues? So it allows us to track this through, even though we don't get to approve site plans because of Bill 109, which has been a couple of years now. So there's been a lot approved. It does allow us to be able to engage and sort of see where they are and see what some of the issues are. So I do follow those. As to the benefits, there's a number of benefits. First, I believe very strongly, and I want to see, okay, wait, how do I put this? What we see is what we get, right? In this case, all the ones I brought forward have been the result of a developer having a concept plan and bringing it forward, and we can design the zoning bylaw around that. So even if these are passed today, once they are done, if this developer sells to another developer, that zoning bylaw stays in place. So it sort of commits down the road, regardless of ownership, we're still going to see we're still going to get what we're approving and what we envision today. I think that's important, especially in respect to Bill 185, which, as I said, in the MTSA removes maximum heights and minimum parking. Somebody could come along and build 100 stories with no parking. That's a real thing. In the other lands that were part of the municipal comprehensive review and the new official plan, again, we don't have any say. This developer, any developers can come in with a development of townhouses. Now, there's nothing wrong with townhouses, but we have a fixed urban boundary, and we need to be making decisions on the highest and best use of these lands. The other thing I want to make sure of, and I might have cut out for a second. I want to make sure that we maintain the employment numbers. So through mixed use development, we're still maintaining our 50 jobs per net hectare employment numbers, while at the same time, instead of having single story commercial buildings or townhouses, which may house a smaller number, we're able to exponentially grow those planning fees, development fees, and property taxes down the road, which we absolutely need if we're ever going to address the constantly rising property taxes in this town. I'm not saying they're not going to go up, but what I'm saying is the more ways we can split the pie, it takes the pressure off the residential taxpayer. We're able to bring in things like ride sharing, or be able to bring in things like the affordability components, which we don't get in any other way. What else? I mean, there's more. I'm sure there's more. I didn't expect the question, but those are a few things right off the top of my head.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I want residents to understand that, through your directives, you're not just thinking about future residents, but current residents as well. And your point of setting guardrails is an important one, because we don't know what our OP will be in 4 years, but I think based on current trends, it is fair to say that, setting these limits now may be actually in our best interests. My concern, and I've expressed this to the mayor, is that a lot of these, I think you're calling them development agreements, Chair?
I'm talking to staff right now to create a mayor's directive agreement where we can contractually bind the developer to what we're agreeing to. Because really, there is no absolute guarantee in anything. As Mr. Romanowski said, they can still appeal to the OLT based on certain things. But I feel very strongly having these agreements in place shows this was our understanding and expectation. Now, things change, and sometimes we need to amend. But again, it solidifies the intent and the understanding for all parties. Just to add one other thing to the benefits as well, we did as a council very incredibly well attracting commercial business and investment in the last term, the 2018 to 2022 term. We had over $1 billion worth of investment in our town alone in that 4 years, but we've had very little residential. And we know that the residential market is very slow right now. What I'm attempting to do through these as well is accelerate that, because organically, if we let the OP review and everything happen to bring us into conformity, that's a few years. And then we start the site plan process, which Mr. Tarski pointed out takes quite some time as well. By us doing what could take a year or two in a couple of weeks, we can start that process now. So we might have some results in 4 years versus 6 or 8 years.
Right. I think a key
just to add-
component I want to make clear, very clear to anybody watching, or, you know, for the future, is that at the end of the day, and, you know, I respect what Mr. Tarski's vision, the Tarski's vision for Ajax, it's very ambitious and it is a housing first mentality, but I am, for one, like, do not care if they're profitable or not. That is not my concern as a councillor. My concern is to build in these safeguards to protect not only the current, but also the future residents, to make sure that, you know, we don't have a similar situation that we had across the street. So I still have concerns, but really this, you know, the mayor is asking today is for a bit of a leap of faith and to trust his, you know, these safeguards that we have, his negotiation. But I just want to make it clear to Mr. Tarski, who's sitting right here, that, you know, like, I don't want to come back in a year's time where you need a bit more parking. We need a few more floors because you couldn't get your finances to work. I want you to make it very clear that that's not my priority. That my priority is what's best for the residents. So if you are going to ask that, then we're going to ask for more affordable housing, more rideshare, more, because that's how the negotiation works. And that's how partnerships work in general. So I will leave it at that. I will ultimately support, because I do believe in safeguarding for our residents. But obviously, you know, there is a leap of faith concern. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Next, we have Councillor Tyler Moore.
Am I in? I'm in. Thank you, Your Worship. I want to speak to this because there's a bit of a pattern happening now where these developments come to council, and then it's all about zoning, and we approve the zoning with all the, as one person said, critical and carefully considered decisions, and then it goes out, and then everybody starts commenting. And I want to just, not so much remind, or I don't mean to lecture anybody, but, you know, it's just a reminder that, and there's nothing wrong with it, but MPs don't have to live in the riding that they represent. MPPs don't have to live in the riding that they represent. But all members of this council live in Ajax. All members of this council have lived in Ajax for decades. So your concerns, for instance, the development at Roslyn Road and Harwood that we've been discussing, that's my neighborhood. I go to Longo's to buy milk. Like, that's where we live. So I'm saying your concerns are my concerns, my wife's concerns, my family's concerns. So I just want to remind everybody that there is not a disconnect. We are all concerned the same way you are with the traffic. I know about how there's no queue lane going into the Christian school, and all that needs to be spoken to. So with these initiatives, it can be spoken to. Also, the strong mayor powers, which accelerates development, as per the agreement when it came in 3 years ago or wherever, but it doesn't supersede any kind of rules or regulations or site plans. Like, people need to know that. There's no fast tracking of those rules. And ultimately, the reason why I'm supporting this and any other development is because it becomes a suite of options in our town where, you know, maybe that one isn't good for you or that one isn't perfect, but in the future, as we get older, or for young people, it gives us more options to maybe stay in the town that we know and we love, as opposed to having to move away to get the right unit. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, we're dealing with a free market society here. People buy pieces of land, they want to develop, and we do everything we can. But these decisions don't just come coldly. They're definitely considered and come from the heart every single time. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Henry.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. My colleagues have spoken very well on this, and I will, as the councillor of Ward 2, the local councillor for this area, in particularly 154 Roslyn Road, I would like to touch on the points that, yes, we are hearing the community very loud. I saw this as an opportunity to do a course correction. In my opinion, that light in the Longo's Plaza should have never been placed where it was. We have bottlenecking happening in that area going into the Longo's Plaza, going into the Christian Pickering School. The congestion at certain times is overwhelming. I've received multiple emails, text messages, other types of messages, phone calls from residents complaining of it. In fact, my good friend, Regional Councillor Crawford, who is traveling in that area quite frequently recently, has given me some phone calls herself on the issue. So this was a great opportunity to have some meetings with the mayor, with some property owners of the area, talk about the current traffic, doing some course corrections there before new development came. Now, do I want a huge building there? I'm sure nobody does. But the facts are that we have a property owner before us that is going to build. And this is an opportunity, in my opinion, to place some restrictions that will work very well for the residents of Ajax with affordable housing. Affordable housing is my #1 thought process priority when it comes to housing that we're bringing forward in Ajax. We need to do our part in Ajax as everyone across Canada has been asked to do their part, every municipality, and we need to do our part. And what does that look like? We go up or out. Those are our choices, up or out. So we have some development coming here that's going to offer some good housing solutions with some walkable communities that are already existing. We have a plaza across the street with Longo's that is staying where it is. There's been confirmation on that. And, you know, that helped in the decision-making process. We don't have immediate housing around the area, with the exception of the one that spoke today. And if we do some course corrections here before we do the widening, or at the time of the widening of Roslyn Road and Harwood, we have some opportunities here to really fix some traffic concerns, and I'd like to see that happen. So I will be supporting that. I welcome further meetings going forward with the Christian Pickering School, Longo's Plaza owners, and I'd like to see some shovels in the ground sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Good discussion today, and thank you to my colleagues for their comments. So just going back to the conversation between Regional Councillor Lee and you, and the reason to accelerate these is to guarantee some safeguards. So are you saying that that will only happen if we accelerate this process versus waiting for the OP and secondary plans to be completed? Or would that come at a later time as well?
Oops. Actually, I'm saying that will only happen if there's a mayor's directive or an MZO. If it goes through the normal official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, there is not conditions set. It's just the approval and the zoning is put in place, and that is.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you cut out, so we didn't get the full response.
Oh, I'm sorry. If it goes through the standard process and takes a year or however long it takes, once the zoning and the zoning bylaw are approved, the applicant can come back with whatever that they want that fits within that zoning and that zoning bylaw. Right? So in this case, we're taking that year out, but we're also able to set sort of the parameters today. And I'm absolutely, if Mr. Romanowski would like to speak to it as well, just to confirm, that's my understanding.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, can you just repeat the question? Because I'm a little bit confused by Mr. Mayor's answer in that.
Sure. So earlier when Councillor Lee had asked him what is the benefit of accelerating
Right.
the response today, what's in it for us, so to speak, and the mayor made mention that all of these safeguards could only be placed through the mayor's directive, or if we did it sooner versus later. So I was asking if that is accurate, like if if we went through the entire OP and secondary planning process, I think the proponent still has the right to ask for amendments after that process, and none of those safeguards could be negotiated in at that time. Is that correct?
Okay, so
I'm just trying to
It's
understand the benefit of doing it now versus doing it later.
I don't think it's really a fair question, given
Okay.
it's a mayor's directive for staff. However, what I would say is that a lot of the safeguards when it comes to studies and reports and technical elements, sun shadow, noise, vibrate, all those things, those will be dealt with through the site plan approval process. And as I mentioned before, those safeguards through the development review will be dealt with through that process. So that's what we can deal with at the staff level through these directives once they come as a site plan to the planning department.
Okay, thank you. And that's completely separate from a mayor's directive. That is
Separate
standard
from the
procedure.
mayor's
Yeah,
directive.
So that's my
I
question,
think the
Mayor
question was, can we put sort of those guidelines in place if this goes through the normal process? Zoning is there, and then whatever comes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, you cut out then just kind of in the middle of your speak there.
Okay. My understanding and the way I answered the question from Councillor Bauer was, if this goes organically through the regular process, at the end, when the official plan is updated and the zoning bylaw is put in place, you don't put any of those sort of guardrails in place that we are establishing through the mayor's directive.
Fair enough. Yes, that's accurate. The directive has a little bit more stringent guardrails, as the mayor's saying. Those wouldn't necessarily be put in place as you go through the more longer public process.
Okay, thank you. And for my own clarification then, the mayor directives that are being put in place or suggested to be put in place today, what are those specifically that are not part of the organic process? What are those extra bullets? And I'm sorry if I should already know this.
No, actually, I rely on staff to put those zoning bylaw amendments together. So we're still asking staff, like I don't write those. We give the concept plans and staff puts those together for me to bring to council. So, because I'm not a planner, so I still need to rely on them to sort of set this stuff out. But sorry, what's your question again, Councillor Bauer, specifically?
I guess my question specifically is, what is the difference doing it this way through a mayor's directive accelerated versus going through the OP and secondary planning process, and then the ability to amend is still present at that time? So what are the mayor directive bullets that are not included in the organic version?
Okay, first of all, I insist that the applicant still pays the official plan and the zoning bylaw fees. So we're not taking away from our approved budgets and our approved processes. Staff still have to do the work. They still need to be paid for the work. So that remains the same. What we're able to do through the mayor's directive is just accelerate that. So instead of taking a year or however long it takes, we can do it in a matter of weeks. What is included that wouldn't normally included are the safeguards or the guardrails or whatever we call it. When it goes, they don't set those absolute specifics when it goes through the normal process. These are things like the affordable component, for instance. The affordable component is never going to be part of a standard OPA and ZBA application. They will set minimum maximum building heights. They will probably set some parking and some setbacks. Things like rideshare programs, that a site plan has to be submitted through a certain time frame. Other things that we're working on putting together through a mayor's directive agreement are things that we can do as a council. And Councillor Lee correctly pointed out, there is no absolute guarantees. Okay, we're doing the best that we can to try and make sure that what we see, that what we get. There may always be some transfer of ownership. There may always be, like the 101 Bailey matrix, some minor changes, like going from 11 to 12 stories because of market conditions and changing from a condo to a rental. Oh, did I cut out again?
Yeah.
There we go. I think we also need to have that. That's all we're trying to accomplish.
Very much. I appreciate the time for an explanation. That's my only question.
Sorry, I muted myself. I think I saw Councillor Dyes, your hand up, but it's not up now. Did anyone else want to ask questions or speak to these? Okay, I'll just, sorry, is this, yeah, I think it's live. I'll just speak to it in closing. And I want to thank Council for all of your questions and consideration. We could have done these things a few different ways. We could have done MZOs. We could have just waited it out. But collectively, we've set a pretty aggressive target. We signed a pledge for 17,000 units. We really, other than 310 Kingston Road, don't have anything working right now, and we really need to. I think we all learned a valuable lesson with the Lamine development across the road, and we're all a little wary of some of these things. But I do want to thank you, because I think what we're putting together, I'm hoping this will pass today, or these will pass today, is sort of setting our future moving forward. I think this is the way things are going to go. And I do like to maintain that control, hopefully, and make sure that we, I think Councillor Lee has pointed out correctly a couple of times about, I'm not going to be here. I want to make sure what's left is not a problem for future councils, that we have these things in place and that we're going to move forward successfully. So I'll leave it there. I don't see anybody else in the speakers list, so I'll call the vote. And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to our next item. Is there any notice of motion? Okay, seeing none. Any new business and announcements? Councillor Crawford, I'll ask the clerk to activate your mic.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank staff for a very successful Pumpkinville. I apologize, I was not there, but from all the pictures that I saw, it looked like it was well attended. And thank you for all the work that goes into such big events. It was a great, I'm sure it was a great day. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Councillor Lee and I, Regional Councillor Lee and I have our ward meeting this Wednesday, the 23rd, from 7 to 8. Prior to that, we're having a little event all of council will be a part of. It is a council pumpkin giveaway. This is happening at Audley Recreation Center from 5 to 7 p.m. prior to the ward meeting. A little pumpkin giveaway, limited. I'm letting you know, folks, it's limited pumpkins. We don't have unlimited pumpkins. First come, first serve. I will be dressed up as a pumpkin, as Director Romanowski saw me on the weekend at Pumpkinville. Yes, I scared him slightly. And look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lee. To the clerk, please activate his mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Ajax Anti-Racism Task Force is proud to present our Diversity Exchange Combating Islamophobia workshop. That'll be next week on Tuesday, October 29th, 2024, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Ajax Town Hall. We have community members and speakers, and it'll be a fantastic opportunity to kind of learn what's affecting the community and how we can combat Islamophobia together. So as the council representative on the AART, we hope, ARTFF, we hope we can see you there on Tuesday. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing nothing further. Let me just find the confirming bylaw. There we go. I think we're on to Ward, I think it's Ward 2. Moved by Councillor Henry, second by Regional Councillor Lee. The bylaw number 77-2024 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its regular meeting held on October 21st, 2024 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Those There we go. That carries. And finally, moved by Ward 3, Councillor Bauer, second by Regional Councillor Dyes, that the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to staff for your patience in my